Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. I'm Roseanne, your host. And today I'm with Matt O'Neill. And I came across Matt and thought, here's a piece of happiness that I need in my life and I need to share with everybody else. Matt is not only a podcaster, but he's also an author. So his podcast is The Good Mood Revolution, and his book is The Good Mood Revolution, Igniting the Power of Conscious Happiness, which is a very fulfilling mouthful. I kind of like that. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Roseanne, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So I have my initial question, and I did this as I was writing. I've got like the tiniest amount of notes. I barely wrote any notes because I love it when our conversations just flow. Why a revolution? Because as I was writing the word revolution, I thought, yeah, of course, we've got the rebel type revolution, rise up and, seize what's ours kind of revolution. But also you have the energy of turning in a revolution. And for me as a chakra person, the chakras are spinning in these beautiful revolutions. And so, yeah, I just wondered, which type of revolution are you leading, Matt?
Both. It's both. Yeah, it is a rising up against the only enemy we ever face, which is ourself.
Mm.
And the revolution is our personal revolution against the thought patterns, the mind that holds us back from being our consciously happiest self.
Mm.
And also, it is a continual upward spiral, and that will fall and then we'll climb again, and we'll fall and then we'll climb again. It's kind of like going around a mountain. But each time we come around just a little bit higher, and we can see just a little bit more.
Yeah. Love that. So, what drew you to this work? How did you come to be the good mood dude?
It was a lifetime calling. It,
Yeah.
you know, I believe we're all born with an idea of why we're coming here. And when I was just a kid, I remember looking in the mirror, in the bathroom mirror as like a 5-year-old. And I thought, I'm going to write a book that helps people feel better about themselves. And then I'm a teenager and I'm not happy at all. And I'm going through all the teen angst, and the same idea would come, hey, you're going to teach people about how they are going to feel their best. And I'm like, that's weird. And then in my 20s, it showed up. And then in my 30s, it showed up. And I finally decided, let's go ahead and write the book.
Mm. So the book came first and then the podcast to support it. Is that how it went?
Yeah, simultaneous. It was actually in a conversation with Matt Micheletti. And I was writing the book as I was working with him. And he said, it's going to help you a lot to be in conversation about this work on a consistent basis. And I
Mm.
said, well, I really love podcasting. And he said, imagine this, you could interview the world's greatest experts every single week, and it will enhance your understanding of the material that you're writing on such a profound way. And now 140 different experts about how to feel their best have had hour-long conversations with me and become friends. And it certainly has done just that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I'm with you on that. I find the conversations that I have with people, they always are enriching, so nourishing. I learn so much. And I love the fact that I get to ask all the stupid questions. So let's let's dive into as many stupid questions as we possibly can. So one of the things that I noticed on your when I was doing research about you, you have these kind of you have good moods and you have bad mood emotions. And there was 8 of each. And so of course I got busy to try and kind of give them to each of the chakras and see where they lie in the body, because that's how I go. But how did you come up with these? Let's just talk about how you came up with these and where they came from in terms of yeah, just like a really comprehensive list of 8 emotions or ways of being, because it's a really beautiful list to read, especially the good mood, of course, and then the bad mood
Yes.
is just as important. We have to face up to the shadow side, because that is
Yes.
all part of being human, is that we have to face up to all of the stuff that isn't as fun, because we're here to have the whole experience, and that's the good and the bad. But how did you come up with this comprehensive, well, it's not maybe comprehensive, but this big old list of eight?
The 8 bad mood emotions are from the work of Dr. David Hawkins, and that work was also done with the Sedona method and the release method, the release technique method that were Dr. Hale Dawkins and Lester Levinston. And so this was a big movement in the 1990s. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force.
Mm-hmm.
And in Power versus Force, he talked about the 16 levels of consciousness. The 8 negative moods are those lower 8 levels of consciousness. It's also what Matt Micheletti and Ashley Cottrell, the yoga couple, talk about.
Mm.
However, and there are only 8 negative consciousnesses. There's only 8 negative moods, which is so relieving because when we're in a bad mood, it's just one of 8 ways.
Yeah.
Now there are far more positive emotions than 8.
Yes.
And this is where I veer from Dr. Hawkins' work. He hit the 8 that he identifies just didn't resonate with me. And for me, I wanted to write a book of what I knew to be true and how I actually help people feel good about themselves. And so these are the 8 positive emotions that I think make the biggest impact when we lean into them on how to consciously be happy.
Mm.
So we could talk about those 8 just to name them off on
Yeah.
the
The one that
negatives.
I
Oh, go
found,
ahead.
well, just the one that I wanted to dive in with, the one that there's two that I found interesting,
Mm.
as slight curveballs to the normal kind of list of happy emotions and good emotions. The first was responsibility, and then the other was humility. So those two are ones that I wanted to ask you about, like the good mood, because most people, I think, if you say responsibility, it's a heaviness. It's a like, oh God, I'm responsible for that. It's a kind of it's a heavy weight, feeling responsible for stuff or for people
Yes.
and so on.
Yes.
So talk to me about responsibility quickly.
So those are the first 2 positive emotions, and they are the foundation of all positive emotions. We cannot access profound states of joy or just a heart wide open of love
Mm.
if we don't take full responsibility for absolutely everything in our life. You and I were talking about this before we got on the episode today. Responsibility is this idea that, well, I can't control everything that happens to me. I have complete responsibility of my choice and
Mhm.
how I'm going to respond to it. And I often talked about a car crash. Like, let's say somebody T-bones your car and you're just driving along peacefully and doing your thing, and you're loving the world and you're doing the best you can for by everybody you see. And of course, we're not perfect, but our intentions are pure. And then somebody out of nowhere T-bones your car,
Mm.
and you say, "Well, how am I responsible for that?"
Yeah.
Well, who's going to fix your car? It's your job to do that. Who's going to take you to the doctor? It's your job to do that. Who's going to pick up the pieces and start moving your life forward again? It's your responsibility to do that. So as long as we stay in this idea that I'm not responsible for a piece of my life because somebody else did it to me, we can't then own our own life and we can't own our own destiny and we can't choose a consciously happy existence without first owning that I am 100% responsible for everything that happens.
Okay, so you were adhering to all the laws of the road when this person plows into you. And let's say you walk away fine, but your car is totaled and it wasn't your fault, insurance will pay for it, etc., etc. But like you go and you go home and you tell your friends, I was in a crash, and people go, oh my God, poor you, what happened? And people will treat you like a victim. What can I do? Are you hurt? Can I take the kids? Can I, there's people will treat you like a victim, and then you will, but the chances are that you are going to go, well, that was not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong here. I know it's my responsibility to fix the car and get myself patched up and, get through the trauma of this. But I didn't ask for any of that. I didn't want that to happen. Of course, nobody would. So how can you not feel like a victim in that space and take
So
full responsibility for it? Because that is a
what
challenging one, I think.
what a question. And so I always use this image of the car crash. And we are far greater manifestors and creators than we even know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And I bought my dream car in April. It was a brand new silver Land Rover Defender. And I had wanted, this was the first new car I've had. Everything I bought has always been used. But I had seen this car and my wife and I said, we're gonna go ahead and get it. We have 4 children. So we needed a car that could fit, have a third row, and I wanted it to be cool. And I'm
Yeah.
driving this car and for just a couple of months. And in my neighborhood, a tourist is flying through a stop sign and I can't see her because there's a building there. And she hits the side of our Defender as I'm in the car, and my wife's in the car, and 2 of our friends were going to dinner in the new car. Of course, we're going to take the new car to go to dinner.
Of
She
course.
hits us so hard, we go up on 2 wheels, and the car is completely undrivable. The front of her car comes off. We're all okay, thank God.
Strong
And
character.
I'm there, and in the moment, we're on our way to this restaurant we've wanted to go to so bad. Everyone had told us how amazing this restaurant is. They play rock and roll music and everyone sings, and it's like this huge experience.
Yeah.
And uh and here this woman is, and her daughter is hyperventilating from just like the trauma of being in an accident like this. And I'm thinking, this is my opportunity to be who how I teach. This is my
Yeah.
opportunity. So I go to her and I see she's okay and I see everyone's okay. And so that at that moment, I practice gratitude. Thank you,
Mm.
God. Thank you so much. This could have been so much worse. Somebody could be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. I have a brother-in-law who's in a wheelchair from an automobile accident. And that gratitude is an antidote to feeling like a victim. That, hey, in this situation, I was actually lucky. I'm not a victim. I was spared. Like, that's a cool way to go. Well, it gets kind of fun from here. So her insurance is USAA, and they decide they don't want to pay for my rental car. And I'm like, that's really nice. And then they say, we'll pay for it, but we'll pay for it for just a little bit of time. I get a call from the dealership and they say, "Ah, man, these Defenders are in such hot demand. It's going to take 5 months to fix it."
Oh my gosh.
And
Okay.
so I have 4 kids. I've got this little rental car that only fits 5 people. So my family can't ride in it. If anything happens to my wife's car, we can't get around and take kids to school and to their soccer practice and all these things. And I'm starting to feel like a victim. And I'm like, I don't want to drive this little rental car. And my wife said, well, you've always wanted to drive a Jeep. And I have since I was in high school. That was like my dream car in high school was to drive a Jeep. So I called the rental shop and I said, do you happen to have a Jeep that where the roof comes off and I could put my surfboards in it? And they said, we've got a Jeep. And I'm going to call this guy who rented it and offer him something else to help you out. And so I ended up driving this Jeep. I'm taking the top off. My kids are loving like how cool it is. The sun's shining in on us. We're going to the beach. Turned it into an experience. We're still not hearing back from the dealership about my car, but it doesn't matter because we're having fun.
Mm.
And this is like taking response. Like, it wasn't USAA's job to get me into a fun experience. It was my responsibility to enjoy my life in
Mm.
spite of this accident. Well, I got a call 2 weeks ago and they said, we've done no work on your car in 5 months. So it's been 5 months. They haven't even touched it. It's still there in the parking lot. And USAA said, so we'll total it. We're just going to give you a check for this Defender. And I said, great. It's kind of nice. Now I have it. So again, I could choose to say that was my dream car and how dare you and you're not fixing it. But instead, I'm like, this is really cool. I have a whole new clean slate to do anything I want. And so
Yeah.
just on Saturday, we went and we picked out a brand new Range Rover, which we love even more and also has 7 seats. And my wife is driving it right now to pick my mom up from the airport, and she's so excited. The kids are so excited. Like everyone is just so excited. So, what is, am I blessed? Of course I'm blessed, but all of us are. We can be T-boned by somebody when it's not our fault, and we can turn it into the most beautiful situation ever if we say, it's my responsibility to make a beautiful life.
Mm.
Or I could have come to work and I could have complained to anyone who I saw about how I was T-boned, about how my car wasn't being fixed, and how the dealership wouldn't update me, and how USAA stopped paying for the rental car 3 different times over 5 months, and we had to get them on the phone. I could have complained about all of that. But what would that have done? It would have just made my life worse.
Yeah, it's true. So there's a lot of conscious choices going on there. And
Every
it
moment.
takes in every moment, but it takes a lot of mindful awareness to be that conscious in every single turn. And I mean, I'm guessing, from my own experience, because I fall into the pit of feeling sorry for myself or feeling like a victim. Like we all fall into that trap every so often, and then you drag yourself out again, and yeah, without much, just dust yourself off and off you go. Maybe a day or so of just feeling a little bit blue or whatever. Um, but it does mean making that conscious decision to do the work for yourself.
When I was in my 20s, I saw the movie The Secret, and it changed my life.
So many
And
people.
it also made me so frustrated because I thought, if everything in my life is attracted to me by my thoughts and feelings,
Mm.
and I want the most beautiful life possible, it means I have to be consciously aware of every thought and feeling. I'm like, that's impossible. How,
Yeah,
who could do that? And I was so frustrated. I was actually frustrated about this idea that I had to be so conscious of my every single thought and feeling.
so much hard work. Such a pain.
Yeah,
You have to be
I'm
really
like,
aware all the
I'm like,
time.
I just want to be unconscious. Can I just be
Yeah,
unconscious and
and
have this
happy.
beautiful and have this beautiful, happy life all the time? And the
Yeah.
answer is no.
No, no.
No, and this is a 2 decade long process for me. So the first 10 years, I was frustrated that I had to be consciously aware of every thought and feeling. And
Yeah.
then in the last decade, I have taken full responsibility that there's no one else here to be consciously aware of my thoughts and my feelings other than me. And that anytime I'm not consciously aware and I'm unconscious, I'm I'm manifesting a less beautiful, less happy life.
Mm.
So we're allowed to be unconscious to our thoughts and feelings. We're totally given that freedom. It just means that we're going to suffer. And I don't
Yeah.
want to suffer.
It just makes life a little bit harder when we allow those thoughts to creep in. And when I speak to a lot of people, I have friends, family, clients who really struggle with that negative thought that comes popping up. And it's usually the same one. It's usually that, oh, you messed that up, or you're not good enough, or you don't have enough this or enough that or
Those
whatever.
are three, those are three of the negative moods.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the you messed that up is guilt.
Yeah,
The you're not good enough is shame.
yeah.
And the we're not having enough things is desire. Those are
Yeah, I was
three of the
gonna
negative moods.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about desire because that again, it's an interesting word because I totally understand why it's on the negative side of the page, because that want is definitely a place of dissatisfaction and therefore unhappiness, but also the heart has desire. It's quite nice to desire. Desire is a kind of juicy, delicious thing to have sometimes. And sometimes in our manifesting of things, we need to desire what we want to manifest. We don't ask politely. We have to kind of have a sort of a hunger for it. We need to have a sort of a real kind of vibration for it. And for me, that is often described as a desire, the heart's desire, what the heart.
It's different. So
Yeah.
I went and spent a weekend with Eckhart Tolle and his wife Kim in July. And the event I was at was called Conscious Manifesting.
Okay.
And I thought, if there's one event I want to hear Eckhart Tolle talk about, it's about how to manifest from conscious awareness. Because
Mm.
this is a conundrum. I was also thinking, like, desire is negative. It is, because it's insatiable, and we're always in a state of lack when we're desiring. And
Yeah.
yet here, one of the most enlightened beings on the planet alive today, Eckhart Tolle, is one of the enlightened beings here still alive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I wanted to hear what he had to say about desire, because
Mm.
that's manifesting, right?
Yeah.
And it is not a desire. As we manifest, it's a knowing.
Mm.
It's
Okay.
not a desiring. It's a knowing. That's already mine. It just hasn't come yet. I'm not pining for it. I have enough. I am enough. This present moment is all I need.
Hmm.
Everything right now I have complete gratitude for, because this moment is perfect. Like, I am in just bliss at this moment. And I have a knowing that I'm going to have this thing at some point in time. It's just coming. I'm not pining for it, and I don't even need it, but it is coming. And so that's kind of the situation. We just going back to the example we've talked about. I wanted that defender. I received it, right? I went out and got it. Then it
Hmm.
was gone. And I'm in this, I want it back, right? It was a negative state. And my wife said, well, what would make us happy right now? What could we do? And it's like, okay, well, then we'll have this Jeep. And it was just, I'll have a Jeep. And he ended up finding one for me. And I was so content having a Jeep. And yet I still wanted this new Land Rover.
Mm.
And I knew that at some point it would be fixed and it would be mine. And then, as they said, you don't get it anymore, it's being totaled. I still knew it would be mine. And we ended up getting something even better. And that's like, is we're not stuck in this, I'm not enough right now, or I don't have enough right now. It's just, I know that it's all going to work out and it's all going to be beautiful. And that right now is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. And if you can get yourself to a place where you can think like that, then everything just flows towards you, and difficulties and adversity that comes your way, you go, okay, great.
Yeah.
Give me more, let me grow, let me learn.
Yes.
But not everybody's able to do that. You know,
Everyone is able to do that.
no,
Absolutely
in this
everyone.
in this present moment, no, okay, yes, you're absolutely right. I take that back. Everybody is able to do that, but not
Yes.
everybody is in that place yet. Okay,
Right. It might
some
take
people
20
find
years.
themselves going, "I want to be in that state," and that's why I listen to podcasts like this, so I can
Yes.
learn how to get into that state. So
Mm.
now, what we need is, rather than just going, just believe it's all going to be great and it's going to be great, some practical ideas about how we can change our mindset so that this mood of ours is good, so that we are in that place. So what are the practical steps? I mean, I know I have a million things that I think of as practical steps, but I want to know yours, Matt. I really do.
Yes, I'm so glad that you've brought this into the what can we do today. And it
Yeah.
is it I'm also very adamant that absolutely everyone can be in heaven today. All of us. We are all capable of it. It's not something left for just Eckhart Tolle.
Mm.
It's all of us are capable of becoming that. And I'm on my way, right? I think Eckhart would say he's not a finished product, that he's
Yeah.
still that he's still growing and evolving and becoming a
I
greater
think
version
even
of
the Dalai
himself.
Lama probably doesn't think he's the finished product, Yeah.
Right. Oh, he's so joyful. I just love his joy. It's just wonderful. And joy is one of the highest of the emotions, and he just kind of lives in this joyful state as there's so much suffering in the world. Okay, let's talk about what I do on a daily basis that is just really practical. So the very first thing, one of the highest good moods we can experience is gratitude.
Hmm.
We can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. It,
Mm.
it, it just doesn't exist. These things cannot coexist. So sometimes we're watching this fun show right now. It's called Tracker. And in this show, things go wrong and it's stressful. And I'll fall asleep sometimes in the middle of the show, and I might wake up and my mind might be racing with stress. Or life could be stressful, work could be stressful, relationships could be stressful. But I want to be gratitude. I want to be grateful. So I have taped a small sign to the floor of my bed, right next to my bed, and it says, "Thank you." As
Mm.
my left foot hits the floor this morning, I said, "Thank." And when my right foot hit the floor this morning, I said, "You." And I walked to my phone to turn off my alarm saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And I turn off the phone and I'm saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And what I didn't do is open the phone because it's on airplane mode.
Mm.
At night, I turn the phone to airplane mode to protect my mind
Yeah.
from stress and anxiety in the morning when I go to scroll my emails or social media accounts or internet or whatever the stress inducing things would be that we do in the morning. And it's because it's on airplane mode, I don't do that. I set it back down once the alarm is off, and I continue to say thank you through the house. This takes zero time. All of us put our feet on the ground. All of us walk through the house in the morning. I'm just saying one thing that takes no extra time is to say thank you with each step you take. What
Mm.
it's done is taking all the stressful thoughts that may have been there the night before or as you're waking up, and it's replacing them with thoughts of gratitude for the day, that I'm alive today. From a state of gratitude, we can start to access higher emotions. But that's the first step of my morning is a grateful step.
Mm. Yeah, it is the most powerful thing, gratitude. And you can do it in such a purposeful way, but you can also do it in a really casual way. Exactly as you said, just as you're making your coffee in the morning, just thank you, thank you, thank you. And you don't have to really know what you're being grateful for, actually.
I don't.
Yeah, a lot of people go, "Oh God, what am I grateful for?" Okay, well, I'm grateful for my phone. I'm grateful for my dog. I mean, good. Yes, fine. Be grateful for the things and the people in your life that are good and great. And that's a lovely practice that should be done. But actually, you're right. Just saying thank you, thank you, thank you is,
Ma Mahashimoto did that study of water.
oh yeah. So,
And one of the words that he wrote on the jar of water was thank you.
mm,
And thank you to what? To nothing. Just it was just the thought, just the words thank you. And in
mm,
that vial of water, the crystals were beautiful.
mm,
And
yeah,
in the one that was I hate you, the vial in that vial, the crystals were disjointed and sharp. And so it doesn't matter what we're saying thank you to, or even if we're consciously thinking what we're thankful for. It truly is just saying these words, thank you. Our body's 70% water. So the
yeah.
water in my body is becoming beautiful
Mhm,
as I'm
mm,
saying the words thank you, kind of in an unconscious way, because at this point it's just a habit.
yeah.
And then, so the second thing that I think is the most important thing to living a life of conscious happiness is a journal. So I wake up before my children so I can sit down with a blank journal and a pen. Before I journal, I do a meditation, not necessary, but for me, and Roseanne, I know that uh, you're a very skilled meditator. I want to calm my body and calm my mind and calm all those thoughts and get into a very peaceful state. And from that point, I've got a lot of clarity. Like I can hear what's going on in a pretty loud way. And I'll just sit with that journal. And if anything bothersome is coming up, like let's say a thought of victimhood that day, maybe I was annoyed about the rental car I was getting or something like that. I just write it on the journal. I'm going
Mm,
to write down the negative thoughts right there before I write anything positive. If something is bugging me, I just write it down. And what this does is it takes this negative thought that's bouncing around in your head. It's trying to get you to heal it. That's why it's bouncing around in there and wanting you to talk about it to somebody. But talking about your negative thoughts doesn't go anywhere. You end up just recruiting someone else who sees it your way, and that doesn't help you. So
yeah.
I just get it out of my head and onto this piece of paper, and I look at it and I say, okay, I'm feeling like a victim today. Is that how I want to feel today? I'll read it. I'll say, I think this was crummy. I think this person should have, not done what they did. Or I think that they should be better. And then I'll say, okay, well, that's my thoughts about them, but everything in my mind, everything I see is a projection of my mind. So if I think they should be better, the truth is I think I should be better.
Mm. I mean, this
So
is the same in all relationships. This is the same, right? Um, the thing that we project out onto other people that infuriates us is what we need to heal within ourselves. We were talking
Mhm.
about this a little bit before we got started, and this episode's coming out just before Valentine's Day. And so we said that we were going to have a little chat about relationships, and you've led into it really beautifully in this sense, because this blaming of other people, this sort of seeing of the inconsistencies or the things that frustrate you about other people says a lot about you, right?
It's all about us. I cannot get into your head and know what you're thinking. I
Mm,
can think I know what you're thinking. I can think I know who you are. It is impossible for me to know who you are. Even if we spent every single day together for the next 10 years, it would
mm,
still be impossible for me to know who you are because I cannot be in your mind. All I can ever know about you is my projection of who I think you are. So if I see you as really beautiful and kind and loving, it means my mind has created an image of beauty and kindness and love. And that's how I want my mind to look because
mm.
that's feels great for me. If
Yeah,
for some reason I saw you as rude and uncaring and mean, to see you that way, my mind has to become uncaring and mean so that I can project that onto you. And that's an ugly mind for me.
yeah.
So I
That's
don't want my mind to be ugly. So when I start, and this is the way we know what our mind is thinking is our projections of other people. So in the morning when I have my journal and I have an ugly thought about someone else, the mind doesn't want to say it's ugly. It'll never say that. It'll say that person's ugly or that person's mean. I
yeah,
just write it down and I'm like, oh, that's cute that you think that they're so mean and unkind. Uh, and then I'll say, how am I mean and unkind today? And you typically, when you ask that question, you get an answer. And it's like, oh, I'm sitting here spewing all this hate at somebody that is probably really awesome, whose mom loves them, whose children look up to them, whose spouse cares about them. And I'm sitting here hating them without even giving them a chance to defend themselves. That's kind of a mean thing to
yeah.
do. So, how could I be more kind today? Well, I could give them the benefit of the doubt. And this is when, I think about Jesus. Jesus, this pure example of love. He would look at somebody who was trying to harm him or spit on him and hate him, and he would just love them. He'd see them
Mm,
as just a lovable being that is learning and growing and trying to become the best they can be. He wouldn't take offense or think they were awful. He would see them in a loving way. And it's because he doesn't he doesn't want his mind to be contaminated with all the ugliness. And
mm,
so whether he has the ability to think that way and he's just above it, or whether he was born in a way where he couldn't see the ugliness of the world, either way, I think that's what we want to aspire to, is to want our mind to be so beautiful and loving that even when someone's being mean and unkind, that we say, I'm going to love them in spite of it.
mm. Yeah. It's a very simple yet very powerful way of trying to manage our minds. And I use that word because I feel like it is like a management project sometimes with our brains, trying to manage all the thoughts that come up and filter them out and going, okay, yep, you're allowed. It's like being at a bouncer at a nightclub. It's like, yes, you look kind, you can come in. No, you're mean, you're out. Like, but we have to be managing our thoughts, and it's a big old job, and sometimes we don't have time to even think about things. Things just happen. We react from a place of experience and from, everything that we've learned in our lives. But and this comes right back to, like childhood. What were the examples set to us for how we react to other people by the adults who are around us? Because, if you had a grumpy old granddad who sat in the corner for your entire childhood spouting filth about all the people on your street, which I know, is not an uncommon thing. You've kind of programmed that that's an okay way to think because there's somebody sitting in the corner of your living room every day just going, that old Bert down the pub, whatever, you know, whatever it is. Um, so it is such mindful work. And one of the things that I wanted to come back to you on, because I'm looking at this list, I wrote out the list of eight. And actually, just because we've mentioned that this list of eight, I'm going to read them out. I'll read the negative ones and you can read the positive ones. How about
That sounds great.
that? Um, because there's one that's not on this list that I want to talk to you about. So in the list of bad emotions or unhealthy emotions, we have shame and guilt that we've talked about. Of course, fear is there. That's kind of like the base level of all of these emotions essentially come from fear. Um, Hopelessness, sadness, desire, we discussed, anger, of course, and then pride. So those are the eight on the negative side. And now, Matt, you can tell everybody what the beautiful eight positive, good moods.
Well, yes, I'd love to go there. What's the one you are wondering about that's not there?
Authenticity.
Oh, on the positive.
Hmm.
Oh, there's so many more on the positive side.
I know. But the
Yeah,
reason
there's
why I bring up authenticity is because for me, yeah, I think I read somewhere recently that they did some study where they could actually kind of read the mind vibrations. And like when people were in that joyful state of gratitude or peace or love, but they actually found that the highest vibration was authenticity.
so I
And
write about authenticity in my chapter on confidence.
okay. So
So
let's
the
talk about
so
the eight good
so
ones.
so the foundation of all positive emotions is humility, because humility is the antidote to pride. And pride is the pinnacle of the ego.
Mm,
And the reason that the most popular people on the planet are the most prideful people on the planet is because 80% of the world, or 78% of the world, according to Dr. Hawkins' research, is below the line of pride and below. So we're looking up at who we think is the pinnacle of the world, which is the prideful people. And that's like the Kardashians, the sports stars, the president of the United States that was just elected, these people that act in such prideful ways. And as a spiritual person, you wonder, why are these the heroes?
yeah.
And it's because there's 22% of the population is beyond the level of pride and can see through it and can see that it's just a big charade.
Mm,
But to get beyond it, the first step beyond pride is humility.
mm,
And humility says, I'm actually no better than anyone, but no one's better than me either. That
mm.
we all have this equal merit. And
Yeah,
that,
well, we're all one.
yeah,
We're all,
we're all one. We're all on one planet.
yeah,
If you zoom out into space and you look back, we're on this tiny marble together. We're all here together. No one's against anyone. We're just here together. We're all one. And that's in so many different ways. But
yeah,
in a
yeah,
very practical way, when you go out into space and look back at us on this planet, it's very obvious. We're in the sea of nothingness and we
yeah,
are on this one little marble together.
yeah,
Anyway, so humility is step one. And this is to say, I no longer believe in the charade of pride. I don't have to prove I'm better than anyone. I don't have to prove I'm anything. It doesn't matter if I win. It doesn't matter if I lose. It doesn't matter how it goes. I am enough. I'm here and this is enough. That's humility. And then responsibility, we talked about. And
yeah,
from responsibility comes confidence. And this is not a prideful confidence. This is an authentic confidence. And the authenticity piece I talk about in confidence is to say, I know who I am and what I stand for, and I'm going to choose my values and who I am, regardless of how difficult a situation I'm in.
Mm.
And when I live according to my authentic self and my values and what means the most to me, I'm proud of myself. And not because I won, not because I beat anyone, not because of anything else. It's like when I got into the car wreck and I said, am I going to fall into victimhood or am I going to be grateful? I was very confident I would make the choice of gratitude, and I made it. And so
Yeah.
that was authentically who I wanted to be. Now, what is this authenticity? I've changed and I'll continue to change. When I was younger, getting into a car wreck, I would have probably cursed that lady out. That was my authentic self at that time. I would have
Yeah.
been authentic to that person. Today, my authentic self is someone who's choosing to be grateful in a situation like that. So we we can embody a true confidence that we know how we'll respond in adverse situations when we know what we stand for. Beyond
Mm.
confidence, we move into acceptance. Acceptance is so wonderful. Yeah, Matt Micheletti actually worked with me on acceptance so much because I was stuck in this um, realm of doing. I was doing and
Mm.
doing and doing and accomplishing and accomplishing and accomplishing, and I would run myself into walls. But wouldn't admit I had limits. I would just continue to do more and more and more and take on more and more and more, and like just become physically exhausted. And he said, ultimately, Matt, you have to accept that you have limits. And acceptance says that he's like, what you're doing with all this doing is you're trying to control the world by doing incessantly. And like it's just another way of you trying to control the uncontrollable, which is the world is uncontrollable. So
Yeah.
acceptance finally accepts that, well, we can live with humility, be responsible for everything, have confidence in our abilities. Ultimately, we have to accept that we're not in control of everything.
Yeah. And the
And
other
then go
sort of
ahead.
side of acceptance that I love is the fact that when you learn to accept, you can also begin to surrender and let go. And accepting things, a lot of accepting things is a lot of letting go of stuff. It's a lot of just like, okay,
We'll all learn it. We'll all learn it at some point. We're going to have to let go of everything.
yeah,
We can't take any of it with us. So
yeah,
acceptance, it'd be wonderful to embody acceptance before we get to the point we start to lose everything. Like
yes,
our physical abilities and cognitive abilities and family members. Acceptance is a true surrender to something that's bigger than me here, and I just accept that that's ultimately for the greatest good.
yeah.
When we accept, so this is what I call the happiness blueprint.
Hmm.
When we accept a situation completely, we just accept it, then we can start to have gratitude for it. So going back to the car crash, since it's a tangible example, once I accepted that I needed a rental car and I didn't like the one I had, and we decided we would get another one, and then I said, okay, I accept that I have this Jeep. I started to have gratitude for it.
Yeah,
And we started to take the roof off of it and we started to have fun with it. And then I'm like, I always wanted to drive this kind of a car. I'm so grateful we have this opportunity. In a way, I'm grateful we got hit.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
from gratitude we've talked about, but gratitude is very, very powerful. It it signals to the universe that you're saying thank you for what I have, and then it wants to give you more.
mm,
And this isn't desire. It's like we attract whatever we think about. So if we think
yeah.
we're already abundant, we attract more abundance.
It's the vibration at which you are operating, and the universe meets you at your vibration. It's as simple as that. We can bring it down to physics if we need to, but the
Mhm.
acceptance of that fact that gratitude will bring more things for which to be grateful is yeah, it's a lovely thing to accept into our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and I lived in desire for probably 5 or 6 years, like in the consciousness of desire.
Mm.
And it received so much and yet was so unhappy.
Yeah, yet so ungrateful.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah,
sad.
thinking I was owed it. Like I'm owed all these things.
Yes, yeah.
And you'll see a lot of really wealthy people that are stuck in that emotion of desire who are maybe wealthy in bank account but poor in spirit.
Mm.
And that's the consequence of being stuck in the negative emotion of desire. But we move into gratitude and we start to have a really beautiful life. So from gratitude, it's like if I'm grateful for everything, can I love everything now? And I could not produce my book until I could authentically love everyone. It's a very difficult step and it's very rare. According to Hawkins research, the amount of people that live in a consciousness of love or above is in the very like 1% of the population is here.
Mm.
99% is not.
Mm.
And that's kind of what we were talking about this. Any judgment I have of someone else is really just me. So could I love like Jesus loves? Could I just see them as lovable? And Marianne Williamson's a good friend of mine, and she talks about somebody she's upset with. And she said, if Jesus was standing next to her, he'd say, I don't know. I kind of think they're cool. And I'm like, and I'm like, that's how I want to be.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of conscious thought when somebody harms you to say they're lovable, they've made a mistake that will harm them.
Yeah.
Maybe it
Yeah.
harm, but nothing has harmed me. I I had a podcast guest and she said everything is grace. And I'm like, what about the child that's hurt and molested? How is that grace? And she said, I'm going to rephrase this for you, Matt. She said, everything is grace for me.
Mm.
And I said, okay, I can get on board with that. I had a emotionally abusive father growing up and he was ridiculously hard to grow up with. And that was grace for me because it put me on a path to writing the book and to doing the podcast and helping people heal. And
Yeah.
without that difficult upbringing, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't take it back. So this idea that we can love even our abuser, I can love my father even though he did what he did, it
Mm.
that's the level of love that we want to aspire to. So beyond love, once we can love everything and everyone, the next spontaneous thing that happens is what the Dalai Lama experiences, which is just pure joy. Yes, there's
Mm.
suffering in the world. Yes, there's people harming other people, but it's so joyful when we could just see it's all about love.
Mm.
And from that place, we move into profound peace. That that everyone else is freaking out that the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and you're saying everything is actually perfect. This is all just a journey of learning and growth. And it's
Yeah.
very peaceful to think that way.
Yeah, it is. And I can't tell you the number of people I've spoken to in the last month or two, um, who are really affected by world events and by politics or what have you. And it literally, like, I do a chakra reading and I can see this dip in energy around this kind of hopelessness, or, they lose a bit of hope. They're like really amazing, beautiful, enlightening, seeking people who want to live their best lives, but they get a real blindside by the external things. That is a big challenge to see all the suffering in the world, see war-torn people pulling themselves to pieces over, and still feel gratitude and love and joy and to actually be peace. But my perspective is that we have to work doubly hard to find peace because we're the emitters. We can all be little radio transmitters of peace and love and joy. And the more that we can push that out there, the more we.
And we're doing it. And we're doing it. The world is a much more loving, peaceful place right now than it's ever been in the history of humanity.
It's true.
And it's because more and more and more of us are waking up and spreading the word.
Yeah.
And more of us are waking up because more of us are waking up and spreading the word.
Yeah.
And in 100 years from now, it'll be more beautiful and more peaceful than it is right now. But it
Yeah.
is really beautiful that we're all doing it. I had my nephew called me after he read my book and he said, Matt, I have a question for you. Is it a requirement to believe in God or a higher power to have happiness? And
Great
I
question.
and I said yes.
Mm.
Because and it doesn't matter about what religion or a higher
What higher
power
power is?
or
Yeah.
what doesn't matter. A view of eternity is required. You cannot have peace without a view of eternity. Otherwise, we'll say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so worried I'm going to die one day."
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we are really worried that we're going to die one day, there will be an underlying amount of anxiety and fear that pervades everything we do,
Mm.
and we'll never have peace.
Mm, yeah. So that belief in something, and again, it's an interesting one when I talk to my clients and so on, and I always ask, what is your spirituality? How does that sit with you? And so many people go, oh, I had a really religious upbringing, and I kind of rejected all of that, or I've just never brought up with that, so I don't really know, but there might be something out there. But the that having that connection with a higher power, for me, it's the universe, source. For you, God. Like for somebody else, Allah. For somebody else, Buddha. Like, there's a million different ways that we can find, but it does give the most immense amount of peace when you find that it's almost and it's a surrender to that higher power, and it's a bit like in the 12-step program where I acknowledge that my life has become unmanageable and I'll just give it over to a higher power. Oh my God, the relief. Because
Mm.
but in a way, actually, that's made me think, when you do that, you're kind of giving away responsibility. Are you or are you not? I don't know. I'm just thinking in
I,
that
that is, yeah, that's a really interesting question. A surrender to a higher power, does that give my responsibility away? I think not.
not really, not on a
It
day-to-day
it's
basis.
still it's my life is it, it's like this higher power isn't going to pay your bills for you.
No, exactly. It's not going to sort out your hire car or work out, where your office is going to be or anything. Yeah. No.
It doesn't do any of that. It's just a surrender that, um, this world is bigger than me. There's 7 billion people. There's billions upon billions of stars. There's billions of insects. There's so many things happening. It's not all about me. And there's going to be things from these other billions of things that happen that I didn't want to have happen. And I just
Mm,
have to trust that there's a much greater intelligence out there that's directing all of it,
yeah.
and that it's all for the greater good.
Yeah. It is one of the most comforting thoughts, I think, when you can accept and know that the universe has your best interests at heart.
Mm.
And actually, the more you think about that as a concept, that the universe has your best interests at heart, and not just you, but all the other 6.9999 billion people on this planet, and all the frogs and the lions and the grasshoppers and the everything.
That's why I rejected religion. It
Yeah.
was because I felt like the God that I was taught, didn't have my best interest at heart. That God was very judgmental, and that
Yes. Yeah.
it wasn't accepting and wasn't loving and wasn't grateful and was more vindictive.
But that's not the God that
That's
Jesus
not,
talked about.
no. But that
That's
was
that
that was
was
what I
that's
was taught in my catechism school growing up in my Catholic, and
yeah.
the priest that made me say 100 Hail Marys in and told me how awful I was, and I'm like,
Oh,
this doesn't register with me. And what's great is that intuitively I knew that that wasn't a true depiction of God,
yeah.
and so I rejected it. But also there was a calling that, hey, there is a true depiction of God out there, and then I went on a search to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the I don't want to make enemies or be judgmental here, but Catholic guilt is something else.
Well, guilt's the second most destructive of the negative
Exactly.
emotions.
But
So
it's an
why
indoctrinated guilt, which has affected many, 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 many people over
when I
generations.
write in my chapter on guilt, I say that as we feel guilty, we do terrible things
Mm,
because we feel bad, and as we feel bad, we treat people poorly and
yeah,
ourselves poorly. And
yeah,
in fact, the best thing we could do is to never feel guilty, is to say, okay, that guilt is there to guide me, that I don't want to do that thing again, but I'm still lovable.
mm, yeah. And the mind does a strange thing when it has a thought, say a guilty thought, it kind of believes it and it goes, okay, so I am that person. And it's really uncomfortable, but I'm just going to double down on that. and etc. etc. And thus it
That was
unfolds.
me. That was me. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just an angry person. I've got a short fuse. I just am that person. So I just doubled down on it. And then I would get into arguments and blow up at people and all this stuff because I just thought that's who I was. We talked about this. That was my authentic self at the time, but our authentic self can change.
Mm, yeah, and it changes through knowledge, through understanding, and through reading and listening. So your book, Good Mood Revolution, Igniting the Power of Conscious Happiness, that's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the places where normal people can get their books, right?
It is.
Thank you. And just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be a guest on Matt's podcast soon,
Oh, I
which
cannot wait.
I'm really excited about. So watch out for that one too. Good Mood Revolution, you'll find that. Just pop that alongside the Chakra Way and you'll be sorted. Yeah.
Roseanne, thank you so much for having me today.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Matt.